Thank you all. We now have some time for audience Q&A, and we see Dr. Palaniswami is coming back up on the stage. One quick one that I saw online, Donna, if you could briefly describe the difference between brain fog or cognitive impairment and hepatic encephalopathy.
Okay, great question. I'm a psychologist, not a hepatologist, but I will try to do my best. Hepatic encephalopathy comes from advanced liver disease, typically having cirrhosis, and it is a buildup of ammonia, which is a toxin. When your liver cannot, and tell me if I'm doing this right, okay? Toxins, when your liver is not functioning properly, toxins like ammonia build up in the blood and go to the brain. And hepatic encephalopathy can impact your speech, your walk, your memory, your cognitions, and we treat that with lactulose, a thick, viscous kind of syrup that gets the ammonia out of your blood. My cognitive impairment can be there from inflammation, can be there from a lot of different things, but you don't have to have advanced liver disease to have cognitive impairment.
Hi, thank you for your talk, both of you. Are these PROs available for free to healthcare systems such as Kaiser, the VA, these other integrative healthcare systems that may not even know that they exist?
Yes, they can be, yes. So I have some out here for people if they want to pick these up. We are still publishing the results from these measures, but they will be able to be out there. Yes, so they will be disseminated. They are free, copyrighted. They are Promise owned. We can't manipulate them in any way. We can't change any of the items or anything on them, but they are for full distribution. And they have also many of them have been translated into many different languages already.
I just have to say that's a huge accomplishment. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of times these PROs, you have to pay money for them. So congratulations.
This is for Dr. Palaniswami. Can you comment on whether or not there is a difference in consuming cooked versus raw vegetables? Mm-hmm. If that would impact the benefit we may be able to get?
Yeah, absolutely. So it does depend in that certain vegetables are better for you cooked and certain vegetables are better for you raw. So for example, with broccoli, raw broccoli has 25 times as much sulforaphane as cooked. So if you have either raw or lightly cooked broccoli, that's better. With tomatoes, they're better for you cooked. Same with carrots. So this has to do with the cell walls in these vegetables. They're very thick, and if you break down the cell walls with heat, then you can absorb a lot more through your GI tract. So that's true with the tomatoes and carrots. So I think in most cases, generally, we recommend that patients consume both cooked and raw, vegetables. And of course, with salads, you really can't go wrong with getting a variety of of vegetables there. But generally, the combination is what we recommend.
Have any online questions? Oh. I can.
So for Dr. Palaniswami again, what's the role of profiling the stool microbiota and perhaps recommending certain, which is what you're doing with the yogurt therapy?
Yes.
What is your experience of doing that for PSC patients? I know you're seeing a lot of our PSC patients.
Yes. Yeah, so I think the technology has evolved a lot in the past 10 years. So the technology that we use for most of the patients is shotgun metagenomic sequencing, which looks at the entire microbiome. It basically looks at all the DNA in a stool sample. And there are companies that we use. I have no affiliation with them, but Tiny Health is one of the companies that offers this. They do offer a direct-to-consumer test, They specialize in pediatrics, hence the name Tiny Health, but they also have an adult gut health test. There's another company called Nirvana Biome that offers the same technology. So we do that in our patients to assess the microbiome. I think that a way that we do it within Sutter, like a Sutter lab, is with assessing a stool pH test. So this is a test that's not really used much anymore because there's a lot more available tests now. But a stool pH, so just to basically review chemistry, you know, acidic means it's pH below 7, and alkaline is when the pH is above 7, and 7 is neutral. And so your intestine is meant to be somewhat acidic. That's the body's mechanism, because at an acidic pH, the growth of pathogens is inhibited. So optimal stool pH is 6.5 or below. And mostly that is determined by short-chain fatty acids, which are these metabolites that are made by the good bacteria. So if you have enough bacteria and they're making the right products, then these short-chain fatty acids will acidify the stool pH, make it below 6.5. So we run a lot of these, and you know, there are very few patients who are at that 6.5. So that's our work with, you know, of course we use diet, but then we almost always have to use prebiotics, probiotics, other supplements. So prebiotics are fibers, different precursors that feed the good bacteria, and then the probiotics are the actual live bacteria as well in food and supplement form. So just one last note about stool pH is that the normal reference ranges in the US have been, over the past 100 years, going up, because so you know what's normal for a lab is they take, you know, thousands of samples around the country and then make it's a statistical thing. It's like what is the, you know, based on 2 standard deviations. So in the past 100 years, the normal stool pH, as people's microbiome is getting disrupted with everyone, the normal has been going up to now it's the normal range is 7.0 to 7.5. But optimal remains 6.5. So I always have to tell my patients, you know, we got this test result back. They say, oh, it's great, it's normal. Well, you're normal, but based on what the population looks like with their gut microbiome, it's still not optimal. But that stool pH test is available through any standard Sutter Lab, Quest, LabCorp, and so forth.
Quick question from the virtual side of things, excuse me. Dr. Palaniswamy, can you reheat the rice after the coconut oil and chill?
Yes, yeah. So generally, those with the resistant starch, that's the retrograde, it's heat stable. So after you reheat, just reheating to room temperature will not destroy those. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question regarding supplementation. Over the years having PSC, I was told multiple times to be very, very careful about taking supplements in general. So
Definitely.
I only the ones my doctor recommends.
Yep.
So like the mushroom powder you mentioned, and what else did you mention? Is that considered a supplement, and do we have to be careful where we purchase that?
Yeah, great question. So I always recommend only taking supplements under the supervision of your doctor, and for sure, because supplements can cause harm, they can cause injuries. So with the mushroom powders, that's a great question. We do have many patients worry that if you have an autoimmune disease where your immune system is overactive and you're taking something like a mushroom powder that can stimulate parts of the immune system, will it worsen the disease? So that has never been shown. There has been some data looking at mushroom extracts, because even with an autoimmune disease, often there are parts of the immune system that are underactive, and then there are parts that are overactive. And foods have the ability to modulate the immune system where they're not stimulating them across the board. There are supplements we avoid in patients with autoimmune disease, things like astragalus or echinacea, which are more powerful stimulators of the whole immune system. But with mushrooms and mushroom powders, because it's still a food base, we've not found that sort of negative effect.
I have a question for you, Dr. Palaniswamy.
Yes.
You talk a lot about mindful meditation, and I wonder, how do we incorporate that into our practice and our program?
From the healthcare
Yeah.
provider point
We
of view.
talk about it,
Yeah.
but how do we actually implement it as part of what we recommend or provide for patients?
Yeah, it's hard in the 20-minute typical appointment. That's true. That's part of the reason why in my clinic we've started these shared medical appointments, because we can see patients in a 90-minute session, and then we have our psychotherapists, health coaches sit in and then lead exercises and spend time, and patients support each other as well. So that's one way we're trying to do it, but it's challenging. I agree. Yep.
Go ahead.
Dr. Palansamy, when you were talking about different foods and you talked about spices, you kind of
Yes.
lumped them all into one. And
Yes.
I'm wondering, are there any that are you particularly like that you would recommend or are good?
Yeah. Yes. Just in the interest of time, I couldn't go through the individual spices, but generally with using spices in cooking and powder form, they're absolutely safe. So turmeric, cinnamon, ginger, garlic, all of the kind of Asian spices that are used are beneficial. So I would probably start with turmeric, cinnamon, and ginger in terms of things to include more in the diet, because anti-inflammatory and also very good for the microbiome.
I think we have time for one last question.
Hi there, Dr. Palansamy. My name's
Hi.
Adam, patient. Thanks so much for this, both of you, all of the panelists. I've been reading about small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and just curious how that connects with your work, and if you give any credence or validity to some of the, like there's tests for the sulfur, hydrogen, like you blow into the bag, that kind of thing. Is that a real thing, or and how does that connect with your work?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a real thing. So I learned a lot from Dr. Mark Pimental, who's an expert researcher at Cedars-Sinai, who's doing a lot of work on SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. He's done a lot of validation of the lactulose breath test, which is a breath test that measures the levels of gases. So basically, you have the large intestine, which we can assess with a stool test, and then a small intestine has to be assessed with a breath test. There are various pitfalls with this test, it's like the reliability and things, but if you follow a very specific protocol and diet beforehand, it's still valid. So we do that test with our patients, and studies show increased incidence of SIBO in many autoimmune diseases, like IBD for sure. I don't think the study has been done in PSC specifically that I know of, but in IBD, other autoimmune conditions, so Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, it's been shown to have a much higher rate of SIBO. So I think that's part of the puzzle, because there's always many different causes with a condition like this. So.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for the lively questions. I want to thank again all of our great speakers for opening up, being vulnerable, sharing cutting edge research all across the spectrum in this last session. So we'll now be headed into a little break, and then after that we'll have some breakout rooms. So just some logistics on that. The breakout rooms in the person are going to be down in the hall to the left, right? We can help you if you're lost. If you're online, we'll be opening them up virtually, and you'll be able to choose between them and sort of filter through them. So thank you all.